Of the various characters in Dragon Age, and well, really the sorceress characters in general, that and female mage characters in general, one character that has always kind of stuck in my mind over the years has always been Morrigan. I always find her kind of, well, there are some interesting aspects to her, but there's also the fact of sort of where she comes from, who who she was raised by, how that influenced her as a person, and who she ultimately grew up to become and grow into. I thought were interesting. There's also the fact I just like how she has, like, sort of the presence she has had in that respective series that she is in. There is, I would say, intrigue, but also, I don't know. I really don't know how to put it to words. It's just that I've always found Morgan kind of interesting. Like, she always stuck out to me as one of the more, just a character that would always stand out to me. That I don't know if it was because of her voice actress. I don't know if it was how she was written. But of all the games I played in high school, this one actually stuck out for me. Mainly because of the characters within the first game, and the second game, and the third game, and Morgan was one of the characters in those games that always stood out and caught my attention. And she's someone that I kind of wish there were more characters like in entertainment now. And yeah, she's just really fun to learn about. Like, the more you learn or the more you see of her, the more you want. And yeah, I find her strangely compelling and kind of bizarrely attractive, but yeah, that's me. Like, imagine a kind of not savage beauty, wild beauty, like a beauty that is cultivated in a place you would not expect. You would assume beauty would be cultivated or developed in civilization, but Morrigan is a beauty that was raised in the wilds and grew into someone that I think if most people in that world knew where she came from, they probably would find it hard to believe, concerning what she would later become in that world and the influence she would kind of have. Morrigan was born the daughter of Flemeth, the Witch of the Wilds, a legend in Ferelden, and actually I think there are other Witches of the Wild legends in different parts of Thedas and the world of Dragon Age. But there's always only been one Flemeth, but there have been multiple like daughters of Flemeth, so Morgan's not the only one, but we only know of two as far as I'm aware. There's her and another one that starts with a Y, and I think Alistair killed her. And her father is implied to have been a chastened, or chased. She was raised in predominantly isolation within the Kokari wilds, with only her mother and animals surrounding her. In this period of her life, she learned shape-shifting magic. She did leave the wilds occasionally, I think, but in disguise. She would usually disguise herself as an animal. One time she stole something from a noblewoman that she thought was pretty. When Flemeth found out, she took it from her and smashed it. Yeah, it really kind of messed Morgan up a little. And she was scolded for this by Flemeth. And though Morgan was kind of heartbroken, she kind of recognized the lesson for what it was and was like, yeah, that was kind of stupid of me. I risked being exposed for something so foolish and childish. When she came a bit more further of age, she actually once helped her mother in dispatching of Templars by feigning to be an innocent little girl, and she led them to their doom. I gotta give her points for her resourcefulness and her acting ability. And yeah, she just spent her time in the Kakari Wilds with her mother, developing her abilities and more or less remaining out of sight and awareness of the Templars and the Chantry. Over the course of the original Dragon Age Origins game, she had a couple roles and presence in the game. She was the mage companion, or one of them, one of two, I believe, if my memory is right. And she specialized in shape-shifting magic. And she could, if you were a mage, like if you chose the mage origin, if you were the ML, you could actually learn shape-shifting magic from her. And she was one of the romance options in the game. The Warden first encountered her in the Kokari Wilds while he and Alistair and two other Grey Warden candidates were searching for documents needed for the joining ritual, so they could become so the Warden and these other two recruits could become real Grey Wardens. And the encounter was kind of strange, actually. When, like, I have to imagine it would have been strange, and in the process, the Warden also met Flemeth briefly. And then they were allowed to leave. I think depending on what you say, Morgan will make some kind of weird comment like, I like you. And then Alistair will be like, careful now. First it's I like you, next frog time. And that was the first time you saw it. You would later encounter her again after the disastrous Battle of Ostagar, when Loghain left the king and the Grey Wardens to die. The Warden and Alistair were saved by Flemeth and brought back to her hut in the Kokari Wilds. Morrigan helped nurse them back to health, and when the Warden awoke, Morrigan was there. And she would be a companion through the game as long as you didn't do anything to cause her to leave. And she pulled her own weight, I believe. There was this one instance of where there was a demon possession causing death in this one town called... I can't remember the name. I think it involved Arl Eamon, I believe. His son, I think it was Connor, was possessed, and it turned out he was a mage. She, like, of the three options of dealing with the demon, you have either you can get the Warden to go in, you can get the other mage companion, whose name I forget, to go in, or you can get Morrigan to do it. And all the while, she's kind of making snide and funny comments along the way. And this all leads up to an eventual battle after you get the three treaties together and these three alliances to come together to fight the Archdemon and the Darkspawn, who are the main threat in the game, or the story of the game. You have... Well, before the battle that becomes known as the Battle of Denerim to kill the Archdemon, you are told that the person who kills the Archdemon, they die. So if you're a Grey Warden and you do it, you die. It's one of the things the Grey Wardens were created for, is they dedicate themselves to fighting Darkspawn and killing Archdemons. And worse things happen to you if you're a Grey Warden, just to put that out there. So before this battle, Morrigan goes to the Warden and says... Oh, and I should point this out. At some point before this, she actually learned what her mother was supposedly going to do, which was possess her and just take over her body. If you agree to take out Flemeth, I believe Morrigan gets her hands on the true grimoire, and this allows her to learn about a special ritual, in which case it can save the Grey Warden who lands the killing blow. Because it requires, basically, Morrigan to... how can I put this? Actually, no, fuck it. I'm not even going to be coy about it. It requires you to have sex with her, to sleep with her, and more than what you usually do if you're actually romancing her, and impregnate her. And what this does is so that when the Grey Warden kills the Archdemon, that Grey Warden will not be killed. Instead, the soul of the Archdemon will go into the child that is now in her womb. Now, the Warden can do this if male. If not, you can convince Alistair or Loghain to do so, depending on some choices you've made in the game. And after the defeat of the Archdemon, she kind of vanishes. You don't know what happened to her for a while. It's not till the DLC Witch Hunt comes out that you actually get some closure on that. It is said in the epilogue to the game before that DLC that Morrigan would be spotted and looking heavily pregnant. So, yeah, I guess the player has better aim than they probably thought they did. I'm kidding, but and later the warden can kind of go and find her, and they can confront or get closure to how things ended with Morrigan. Or you have the option to go with her through this magical mirror and see the child and be a part of that child's life for a time. But anyway, that was more or less her role overall in the Dragon Age story of Origins, anyway. Now, following this, if you didn't stab Morgan and let her fall back into the mirror, or let her go on her own, or go with her, regardless of all of that, if the ritual is performed with either the warden or Alistair or Logain as the father, Morgan will become pregnant and give birth to a son named Kieran. And this boy travels around with her, while she is doing the things she does. And I kind of get the impression this kind of changed her a little in terms of personality, well, no, I'll get to that next. But yeah, I do feel like motherhood had an impact on her. And she goes on to become an advisor to the Orlesian Empress Selene or I think that's how you pronounce the name, in 937 Dragon, which is I don't really remember how the dates work in Dragon Age, but that's just a date and a year and month, I think. Anyway. Or a year and of the century, but again, anyway. She would later be present during the Inquisition game. She would be present at a ball held at the Winter Palace, and there she would meet the Inquisitor. Once an alliance between Orlais and the Inquisition was cemented, she basically became a liaison between the Inquisition and Orlais. At one point, there would be this incident where, well, it says Phyllis seemingly kidnapped Kieran. It's more like he disappeared behind this mirror thing. I forget what it's called. Like, it's been years since I played the game, so my memory of it is very limited. Like, really limited. But yeah, and so she and the Inquisitor go after to what they think is rescue Kieran. Much to their surprise, Flemeth merely removed the soul of the archdemon within Kieran and then returned him to Morrigan. And leaving Morgan kind of confused and a little hurt. Because I think by this point she thought she knew her mother on some level, but I think by this she realized she didn't know her mother as well as she thought. Or something. It seemed like she wanted her mother to stay for a second. It was like she had so many questions now. It'd be like, okay, let's say you had this parent. They were harsh. The way they raised you was brutal. You weren't shown as much love as probably children should have been. You were probably shown some, but not a lot. And you had this idea of who your parent was. And then after you've had a kid, and then there's this weird moment between your kid and your mother or father or whatever, and you kind of realize there's this other side to that parent that you never knew was there, or you learn something new about them, and yeah, it's just you're left kind of wanting to know more to fill in those gaps, or it really messes with you. It's like the best comparison I would make is I grew up thinking I knew my father really well, and then I realized there were these things about him that I did not know, and part of me wanted to know, the other part of me was like, it's better off not knowing. I kind of could semi-understand it, but then again, I might be misreading what Morgan really was thinking and wanting at the time. And yeah, that was about it I mean, there was this one event where she gained the ability to become a dragon like her mother could, but that was after this event in the Dales, which I didn't put on here because I can't remember squat about that. Two last things I wanted to touch on about this point in the Inquisition game is during the events of it, after she became a liaison to the Inquisition, and I think after they went through the event where you meet Hawk and either Logain or Alistair, she actually reunites with them at the Skyhold, which is the stronghold the Inquisition uses later on after they lose their first base of operations. And it depends on the player's choice, and it's either Alistair or Logain if they survive the thing that you have to choose between. Well, actually, I can't remember if that's before or after you have to choose who dies, Hawk or someone else. But yeah, there's that, and they have some commentary on Kieran. So does Liliana. If you ask her about it, if the warden romanced Liliana, she will kind of be grateful to because of what Morrigan and Kieran did, or what Morrigan did. The warden survived, who was her lover, and there's that. And following the defeat of the villain of the story, Corypheus, Morrigan and Kieran would depart from the Inquisition stronghold. Where they traveled to after that is, as of now, unknown. I kind of would like to know, but I have no idea if they've released expanded material about Dragon Age concerning that yet. I hope they do, because it's been years since I read anything about Dragon Age. But anyway. In personality, at least at the beginning, Morrigan considered power and survival important. She looked down on the mages who lived within the circle, feeling they gave up their own autonomy. Because of the way she was raised by Flemeth, Morrigan has developed a self-serving attitude, which I kind of like. I kind of like it when characters aren't completely goody-goody and altruistic sometimes. She's callous to those she has little respect for. This would definitely be the case when it comes to mages in the circle and some members of the Chantry. She really has a low opinion of them. By the time of Inquisition, I would say she did soften somewhat, but that could just be me seeing something that isn't there. I still think giving birth to Kieran and having to raise a child did offer her some new perspective on life. I hear having a kid changes a person completely, so it would not surprise me if it did change Morrigan somewhat and the way she looked at people. Like the way she talks to Alistair in Inquisition kind of speaks to this. She's less like condescending towards him. But that was the only interaction from one of her old allies that I got to see. The Logain one I didn't really care about. Another thing that kind of supports why I think this might have changed her is she would prefer to be a better parent than she believes Flemeth was. Telling her mother when she thought she was going to do something to Kieran, I am many things, but I will not be the mother you were to me. Which I found kind of interesting. It's like, this old stupid song I once heard, you have to carry what they've handed down. So if you're a child and you were abused and you come from a family of cycle and violence, maybe you want the cycle to end. That's what I get the feeling Morrigan was trying to do. She was trying to at least be a better parent than Flemeth was to her, and I found that kind of admirable. Just admirable, and kind of makes me want to respect her a little more, despite whatever problems she might have in terms of personality. Like, I still like her personality, but there are problems I would say if I met someone like this in real life. But yeah, she's definitely someone who deserves a little respect. Abilities and power. Morrigan has like the standard physique, I guess, of a mage. They prefer to attack from a distance with magic. She has shape-shifting magic. She can change into the form of a giant spider or a bear. I could also swear at one point she could do that to a Mabari, which is like a wolf or a dog. And she knows various spells. I think there was more that you could unlock in the game, but I don't remember. These are just some I found on the wiki were basic spells she had access to, which were Winter's Grasp, Frost Weapons, Lightning, Mind Blast, Vulnerability Hex, Disorient, Horror, and Drain Life. And I have to imagine as time went on, she learned new and more powerful spells that would make me feel bad for someone who crosses her. Within the world of within the continent of Thetis and the world, I would say Morrigan has really cemented herself as kind of this influential figure. I mean, she's a very crafty person. She she went all the way to become an advisor to the leader of I want to say Orlesian Empire, and she started out as just some woman who lived in the wilds. Was very eloquent, well not eloquent, but very articulate and smart. But that was it. She was able to work her way to that, to be this advisor and have a political power and a place within political parts of the world, even if it did cause her to find herself the target of suspicion and rumor and speculation. I'm surprised it didn't eventually get her burned at the stake, if they do that in Dragon Age. And yeah, she's just this capable person who. Well, I should not save that for later. She's just a very capable person. She is one of the most. What's the word? I want to say. Man, I cannot think of the word. It is going to drive me crazy not knowing that. Okay, I'm just gonna skip over that. She is a very determined person that you would not want to be enemies with. Let's leave it at that. And she is someone who is well known, I believe. I mean, she is known as one of the people who helped the Warden fell the Archdemon and save Ferelden and the world. She is known to be a very accomplished mage, and she is just known to have some infamy in terms of reputation. Now, does that mean she's the most well-known or powerful person in there? No, but she is someone that is very capable, and given enough time, she could amass enough power to become a problem for the most powerful people in the world, I believe. Now, as with the usual of the people in this series I've done, your mileage would probably vary on the appeal part of Morrigan. For me, the appeal has more or less been, well, one, she's a very attractive woman. This, like, really being forced to choose between her and Liliana is really a tough call. But yeah, she's very beautiful, very, I would say, seductive, or it could be. She knows what she wants and works towards that goal. If she wants something, it's not a question of if she'll get it, it's or even how, it's when. That is always the feeling I've gotten from Morrigan is, well, not always, but whenever I look back on her, it's like, yeah, she's someone who will go to any means necessary probably to get what she wants within reason. She knows, I believe she knows her limitations. That's and she knows when to not involve herself in something, or when she needs something done. She knows when she knows to recognize when she can't do it herself. This is something I kind of see with how she handled the Flemeth situation when she needed her mother taken care of. She more or less suspects that if she went to confront Flemeth herself, Flemeth could just possess her and take over her body, and that would be the end of it, or kill her. So she gets the warden to do it, and you may think that's kind of cowardly. I don't. I disagree. I think that is the option she had to her advantage, basically at her disposal. She needed Flemeth taken care of, and she wanted to be free and not spend her life wondering when Flemeth was going to come to steal and possess her body. And she needed it taken care of pronto. And there was the warden, an ally, and depending on how much approval you have with her, someone she trusts, and someone that she really could use the help of in that moment. She uses anything to her advantage. As I said, the warden is an example. It would not surprise me if she was willing to use her looks to get men to do what she wanted, like let's say two men were confronting her, she could probably use her beauty and feign a different kind of personality to turn those two men against each other and kill one another. I can kind of see Morrigan doing that. She strikes me as a very pragmatic and by any means necessary type of person. Another thing that Inquisition did that made me really like Morrigan was she grew as a person. She was, in the beginning, she was kind of this cold, well, self-preserved, preferring person who believed in power and survival above all else. I still think she has some of those attributes. I just think after the birth of Kieran, she changed so much where she was able to find some value in the life of other people, especially Kieran. And she was able to soften some of her more, well, I would say she's still cynical, but not as holier than that when it comes to people like Alistair. Who knows, maybe over time she's grown fond of him and has developed a certain respect to him. Maybe that was something that occurred over the course of the Fifth Blight. I don't know for sure. I can't say. I don't know what goes on in her head. That's just how I see it. Her worldview, while harsh, I kind of see where she's coming from. Like, she lives in a world where if the Chantry or the Templars find her, she will either be killed or forced to live in a circle, but most likely killed, because practitioners of the magic that she has are very scarce and not that well known. So she imagines that they would probably kill her if they knew where she was. In addition, she was raised in the wild and had limited contact with humans. I think, aside from Flemeth, the Warren and Alistair were the first humans that she had real contact with, although there might have been others before that, but they were the ones she had more consistent interactions with than other humans before. So it's at least understandable where she's coming from and how she got to have that opinion. And lastly, she's voiced by Claudia Black. But hey, that's just me. As far as characters that she reminds me of, the only two that really come to mind are Triss Marigold and Yennefer of Vangerberg, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Or where she comes from, anyway. In that, well, like Triss, she is a love interest, and similar with Yennefer. The only difference being Triss is more warm, I would say. I mean, she's definitely willing to do certain unsavory things to get what she wants, like seducing Geralt, and other things, but anyway. Like, she has certain ideas, but she doesn't have a problem sort of doing things that would probably make the people that she loves dislike her to a degree. Like, she sees Ciri as a younger sister, but she's eager to sleep with Geralt and just to be his one and only, basically. Morrigan kind of is somewhat like that if you have a high enough approval to where she will not tolerate you having or showing affection to someone else besides her. And she probably would do anything to make herself the one and only in the Warden's life if they had that kind of relationship. Maybe. That is kind of pure speculation on my part. She more so reminds me of Yennefer in that Yennefer's kind of a bitch. I'm not going to lie. Like, she is kind of a bitch. Morrigan has sort of bitchy elements, but I would say I can by myself sort of tolerating Morrigan's nastier side, because Yennefer just straight up annoys the crap out of me. But yeah, they have more harsher views than most people. They let their opinion of you be known very apparent. And also both have a child that if you mess with, God help you, because they will probably hunt you down to the end of the earth and make you wish you were dead. Yennefer would more than likely do this for Ciri. I mean, she was willing to desecrate a temple to Freya just to perform necromancy, to bring a guy back to life temporarily, just to find out information on Ciri that the guy might have had. That is the extent to which she was willing to go to. Morrigan, Morrigan, I would say would probably do the same thing, especially after Kieran was born. Initially, she just wanted Kieran because, well, either or pursue, she thought he could benefit her in some way, or she really did just want to save the warden. I highly doubt that. The former seems more likely. And but yeah, mainly in the harsher worldview and more like the brutal honesty is the main similarity between them. And that's something I kind of like. I am a brutally honest person. I do not intentionally offend people. I just sometimes say what I think, and if it offends you, well, I wasn't trying to, but I really don't care. Well, I kind of care if you're someone I give a shit about, but that's about it. Excuse me. And those are the two that she mainly reminds me of. Um, she's very. Actually, no, that's about it in terms of similar characters. Okay, this last part I was kind of starved for real thought, to be perfectly honest, because I used all the best thoughts I had already. But when it comes to the takeaway with Morrigan, I would say like she's a harsh character, but she was harsh within like you kind of understood where she was coming from, how she got that way. Again, she lived in isolation with a woman who probably did not show as much maternal love as she was supposed to, and also other outside factors probably contributed to that. So if you're gonna have a character who's harsh, like again, I said it before, I'll say it again, Morrigan can be kind of a bitch, a semi bitch, not too bad, not too good, but somewhere in the middle. But there's a reason for that. That is similar to how people are. When you meet people in real life, some of them are assholes, and some of them have reasons for being assholes. You just have to find out what. And kind of gradually, Morrigan shows why that is. Give a character other strengths that are not just physical. Like, you don't need physical strength to be a strong character. Morrigan's strength was not only in her magic, but her cunning, her mind, how she would just learn how to put something to her advantage. Give layers to a character, like, there was some depth to her, which, yeah, I kind of think that should still be the case. Like, I'm still a guy who likes black and white villains and protagonists, but at the same time, sometimes I can appreciate them. And Morrigan is one of them that has layers to her character. Like, she's not just some person who's cynical and looks down on people because she's a snob. She's got real baggage. She has reasons for being that way and reasons for changing. As I said before, have reasons for why that character is the way they are. Personal growth really helps a character, especially if it's in a series. So maybe if you want to make a series, plan out how you want the person to change over time and what causes them to change. With Morrigan, I think she changed both through her interactions with her party and Origins and through giving birth to Kieran. I think those two factors definitely changed her. If not that, then just age mellowed her out a little. And kind of give an interesting backstory. Like you can, or put a spin on an old type of backstory. Like just someone raised in the woods who's been isolated from society. That's probably a trope that's been done a couple times. But try to mix it in with like the lore of that world, especially if it's a fantasy world. Is what I would like to say. And I think that's all I really wanted to put in on this. Um, anyway, what else was I gonna say? No, that's about it really. Those are just like the main takeaways. Like this has been just another overview of stuff for you to look at and to maybe get you to look up later on after I'm done. But yeah, also I would say she's also an example of like taking inspiration from sort of mythology because actually her name Morrigan comes from the Morrigan, which was a character from, I believe, Celtic mythology. I want to say she was a goddess type of figure that Cuchulainn met. One version was she made advances on him. Cuchulainn turned her down and earned her vengeful glare. So there was that. But anyway, those are the main points. If you're a Dragon Age fan and you like Morrigan, please tell me why in the comments. If you're not, let me know your thoughts on what you've learned. And believe me, I did not give you everything there is to know about her. There's still more you could probably learn. I just provide the stuff that I thought would be fun to talk about, basically. And also, if you're somewhere in the middle where you have vague knowledge of Dragon Age, again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and that's it. I would like to give a special thanks to, give me 1 second to pull up the name, Shalize7, I believe. I'll be posting, one of the images I used came from her. She's an artist on DeviantArt. I will be posting a link to it in the description. Give them a follow. They did I thought the art they did was really good. It was very, I don't know, I found it kind of adorable, just the fact of Morrigan being next to Kieran in that image. And seeing her act all, well, like a parent, basically. I think we could all use more parents like Morrigan in that they've seen harsh life and they kind of want better for their children, and they try to at least teach them the lessons they learned from that harsh life. Again, that's how I look at it. Anyway, yeah, that's it for the video. Have a nice day. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and remember the game was rigged from the start.